Good evening, televiewers. Welcome to another edition of Prime on My Media Prime. We are sorry for the late start. In the program today, we are going to be looking at the press conference that was granted yesterday by the president of the CRM movement, Professor Maurice Kamto, a press conference where he is calling for a determined peaceful resistance of the Cameroonian people against the electoral sham in preparation and for the outright resignation of Mr. Paul Biya in case such electoral sham takes place. The national and international press has been awash with this once again outing of Professor Maurice Kamto, and many persons are wondering what would actually happen if elections, regional elections, are called by the President of the Republic. We are going to be discussing on this lone topic for today with three panelists. Apostle Ambe, Valentine Gwa is part of our discussions this evening. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, my co-panelists. Good evening, Cameroonians and viewers of Prime Hour, which is the talk of the nation. It's always a privilege and opportunity to educate Cameroonians on issues that they may be wanting in many areas in our nation. Thank you very much.
Pastor Tamfu Richard is also part of our discussions today. He is sitting in for the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, CRM. Good evening, Barrister, and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, my co-panelist, and good evening to your numerous viewers of my Prime Hour. I hope that today's discussion is going to enlighten more and more Cameroonians on the current events or happenings of Cameroon.
Also with us is Paddy Asanga, who will be participating from Germany. He is okay, he's live. Paddy Asanga is a political activist and a militant of the Social Democratic Front. Paddy, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Leo, and good evening, Prime Hour. And I want to greet the noble gentlemen who are with me on this panel. And I'm always happy when you people have come out with this idea of always having us included in the discussions that are going in Cameroon. I think if the Jacobinist government was that inclusive as you people have come out with this initiative, Cameroon would not be in the drain and would not be talking about declarations from Maurice Kamto or from Biya and whatsoever. So I'm very, very happy on your panel. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start with you, Apostle Ambe. No, let me start with you, the CRM representative on this forum. As I will read a call for a determined peaceful resistance of the Cameroonian people against the electoral sham in preparation and for the outright resignation of Mr. Paul Biya in case such electoral sham takes place. What is your national president saying?
Yeah, Leo, you agree with me that the world witnessed the last presidential elections, and we all saw the fraud that accompanied the whole process. And ever since the results was proclaimed by the Constitutional Council, you see the Cameroon Renaissance Movement has put in place a resistance plan, an electoral hold-up, as he termed it, contesting those results and saying that its victory was stolen. So the stage at which we are today has been a gradual stage, because it started by an electoral hold-up. You have seen how on some fixed dates his militants went to the street to denounce such practices, and they were arrested and sent to jail. They happened to be out, and the regime has continued to give a dead ear on the grievances or on the revendications that were put in place by the Cameroon Renaissance Movement. And of recent, like 2 months ago, you saw his outing where he was saying that the Cameroonians should mobilize, they should stay awake. So I think the call of yesterday still goes in that same line, just that the tune has changed and it is becoming more and more determined. You see, the two objectives are being fixed, that no regional elections will be organized if, one, there have not been there's no end to the ongoing Anglophone crisis, and two, if the electoral code is not revised, consensually being revised. So I think the call of the president of the Cameroon Renaissance movement is glaring and precise. No election will be organized if the government persists in its stubbornness or in its deafness in arranging for any regional elections.
Okay, Apostle Ambe, this is not the first time Professor Maurice Kamto is coming out to talk to government and warning them. We saw it when they actually gave a 7 days ultimatum that if the government, the President of the Republic, fails to take his responsibilities, he was going to step in, and a host of others. Consistently, the CRM is pushing the government to the wall.
Yes, Mr. Leo, one of the things I have a challenge with as far as political leaders and parties are concerned in this country is their inconsistency.
Okay.
Most political leaders are very inconsistent in carrying out their manifesto or their intentions. For instance, Professor Maurice Kamto came up in the 2018 presidential elections and said he's going to stand in for elections. And when he was defeated, he said the elections were rigged against him. And then municipal and legislative elections came up. He refused to participate or totally denied his party the privilege, which I think affected the party seriously, because a lot of individuals who had buried their lives and their investment in the party expected to come up as mayors and parliamentarians and councillors were somehow felt betrayed, and most of them really got frustrated. A clear example is somebody like Celestin Germain, who had been speaking that it's very, very disappointing for what Kamto did. That has caused a serious shake-up in the party. And then suddenly he came up and said, if President Pobia does not show up himself, he's going to declare and take power. I don't know where that one is found in the Constitution, because to me, the inconsistent one of these leaders is what is giving some of us headache. At the end of the day, they are operating like octopus. They don't have a particular direction. They are just dribbling the crowd from one end to another. That you are a leader, you must have a clear-cut goal and a clear-cut vision. The people should know where they are going. Now he comes up to say, if at all they don't solve the Anglophone crisis. I was asking if at all he went for presidential elections, there was no Anglophone crisis. There was an Anglophone crisis. And why did he stop and the legislative elections and the municipal election? Because I think the elections as a political party is the only platform through which somebody can legally seize power. It's either through a military junta or through electoral processes or by any other means you can get power. But since the political party, what is expected of them is to follow the electoral code and the electoral procedures to obtain power. But he didn't follow that one. Now he comes again and says that without the Anglophone crisis being solved, there would definitely be no regional elections. These are my worries. First and foremost, the Anglophone crisis. Does Maurice Kamto stand with the Anglophones based on their philosophies and based on their achievements or what they desire? I don't think so. Because the clear example was when Maurice Kamto visited Canada. Some people came to attend the party, the meeting. They were driven out because the idea they brought in the meeting was not what Kamto wants for the Anglophones. So automatically, Kamto has not sided first with the philosophy of the Anglophones and their ideology. Now, how does he want to impress us that he is defending the Anglophones when he does not even believe or trust in what they intend to do? That's the first challenge. The second challenge we are trying to ask Professor Maurice Kamto is that when he lost the elections and carried a few MRC members into the streets of Douala, and most of them were shot down, some were locked up in prison, and even him inclusive. When he came out of prison, those who were left there, what has been done for them? Has he done everything possible to release them? Amadou Mota is still in prison, but he's a vice president of Maurice Kamto's party. Now, I want to ask the third question. How many Cameroonians does Maurice Kamto think will jump into the streets if he calls a nationwide protest? Because the issue is not just getting into the street, it's the number of persons getting into the street that determines the outcome. In Egypt, when a huge population came out in the street, there was no way the military could stop them. I don't think if it takes 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 persons into the street again in this Cameroon that I know, people are too life conscious. They don't want to take any risk. They are too afraid. If they step into the streets and few of them are being shot down, definitely it is obvious that most of them will be wounded for nothing. I think he has to gather much momentum to understand that this protest against President Pobia should be a Cameroon stuff, not just a political party stuff. Because we need a huge number of people that will step into the street to quell down even the crackdown the military can bring. If you look at what's happening in Mali right now, the population that is in the streets, the military cannot even confront them. If he takes a handful of MRC members, then he's going to trade them for his political interests.
Okay, Mr. Leo, good evening. Why are my messages never read on the program Prime Hour? Are they not in line with the norms of the program? Please tell me. I'm Dr. Tim from Kumba. Doctor, please. There is no way I can read all the messages. So many persons are writing, so I will not be able to read all the messages. Just unfortunate, but I've read it today. Padi Asanga, how do we understand this new position? I would also say another ultimatum given by Professor Maurice Kamto to the regime in place.
Yes, Leo, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. And I concur almost 80% with what Apostle Ambejo said, because his analysis are very, very correct. But there is something that I will tell you about Maurice Kamto and his agitation. Maurice Kamto, for me, is another Bia, and Maurice Kamto is one of that persons that have actually hates the Anglophone and has caused the Anglophone the way they are today. But he's trying to use that because he has no other political capital that he can use. I will quote you an example. In November 2017, Honorable Ninche of the SDF, he called a march with people from Manidem and Kawala. They went there to march in solidarity with the Anglophones. Do you know the person who said that la politique ne se faisait pas dans la rue? It was the same Maurice Kamto, and it was the same Maurice Kamto who aided Mr. Biya in 2008 to be president today, and that problem, the Anglophone problem, has not been resolved. So Maurice Kamto is just playing Mr. Biya's game and trying to remain relevant in the eyes of the people that he has betrayed, like Maître Michel Ndoki and Njamen and all those who ran to the CRM hoping that they would be elected. He doesn't love the Anglophones. He has never set foot in the Anglophone region. Leo, let me be very honest to you people. In 2018, I went personally to Maurice Kamto's rally here, and I told Maurice Kamto that the chairman of the SDF was preparing to go to Nigeria to visit refugees. Maurice Kamto gave me all the guarantees that when he gets to Cameroon, he will join the chairman and they will go and visit refugees. But until this day, he has never done anything, neither did he step foot there in the North and Southwest region. When you want to talk about the said elections, remember that when we went to the Constitutional Council, we said, everybody said that the elections should be cancelled. But Maurice Kamto, because of his ego, he said he had won elections, whereas he said in an election he won with a system that he had been complaining about. This is dishonesty, and the comparison of Maurice Kamto in inconsistency is only somebody like Ayapol Abine, and you know where he stands today. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sure you are not very okay with some of the things said by... yes.
You see, we should be serious.
Okay.
When we come on a TV program, a more respectable program like this one, we should be giving facts to the audience with proofs.
Okay.
When he says that in November 2017, Professor Maurice Kamto used that on the fait par la politique, I see that's a lie. If he can prove, he can disprove me, let him bring it. When he says that in 2008, Professor Maurice Kamto aided Mr. Biya, was Professor Maurice Kamto a member of parliament? Laws are voted in Cameroon by the parliament. When he says Professor Maurice Kamto, at that time, which position was Professor Maurice Kamto occupying? Was he the draft person of the constitution? Let's be serious.
Okay, so you clarified.
Yes, let's be serious.
You have clarified.
No, there's another. He says
okay.
He says Professor Maurice Kamto has never been to the northwest or southwest. Records are there. You have videos. You can even go to the internet and type.
Okay.
He has visited those regions. What we should be clear and understand here is that we should not have the tendency of fighting another political opponent. I think the target here is the regime in place. Professor Maurice Kamto in the caption, it is a call to the Cameroonian people, not a call to the Cameroon Renaissance Movement militants. It's a call to the whole Cameroonians.
Okay, we are going to come to that. I have a question in that regard, but I want to read what he told Cameroonians. He says, Cameroonians of good faith, regardless of political sides or any other sensitivities, serious foreign observers, bilateral and multilateral partners truly concerned about the future of Cameroonian people and not the survival of an illegal and illegitimate regime, can see that our country has not been governed for a long time now. He keeps insisting on the fact that we have an illegitimate regime and that the government is not governed. How do you say the government, the Cameroon, is not being governed when we know that if you need a birth certificate today, there are instances that are going to serve you. If you need health services, you go to the hospitals. We have seen the floods in Douala and Edea. There is a response. How do we understand that Cameroon is not governed?
Mr. Leo, governance is a whole chain, cooked with so many things. When he says Cameroon has not been governed, we quite remember that when we had the outbreak of COVID, we saw how presidents from other countries were taking the lead, the front stage, to address the issue. Where was our president? Nowhere to be found. We have had instances where we really want to see the president acting as the frontliner. We are not seeing. That is, in summary, when they say we are not governed. We saw how the African Cup of Nations was managed. He did not take the front line to actually supervise the fields that were in preparation. How many of those fields has he visited? None. When he says that Cameroon is not governed, it's not that Cameroon is stopping or that services are not working. No, that's not what he's saying. He's saying that when you look, what you should expect from a government is that when you are in a crisis situation like what we had with the COVID, you expect your president to stand and give you directives, not sending people. You agree with me that for quite a time now, Cameroon is living from one crisis or one incident to another. And where you expect to see the president hitting maybe his hand, that what is going on, you don't find him. So, of recent, we saw that attacks are reoccurring in the Grand North. We have seen the other stage or the other form of the barbaric treatment of the Anglophone crisis where people's heads are being cut up. You see, those are stages of governance. This is a crisis that, had it been we had an active president and somebody who was listening, this crisis could not have been.
Is that why the government is described as illegitimate?
When he says, no, the aspect of coming down to the illegitimacy is that he is saying that his victory was rigged at the presidential elections. And to make the Cameroonians people see that the elections were rigged, he decided to abstain from the upcoming legislative and municipal elections. And we have the statistics. The percentage of those who didn't go in for the elections supersedes the percentage that participated. It's a reverse of what was given during the presidential elections.
Yeah, if you look at the statistics of those who participated in the 2011 elections, I think the numbers are the same, almost the same.
You are talking about 2011. Me, yes. I'm talking about 2018. What the Cameroon Renaissance movement was formed in 2012. Its first elections that it participated was in 2013. Its first presidential election is that of 2018. That is its first presidential elections. And from that presidential election, from the results given by the Constitutional Council, you have on the other side 71, and on the other side they divided to the other parties that participated. Now, after the presidential elections, he has been saying that his victory was stolen and that we should sit and talk over it. But the regime has continued giving a deaf ear. So to that regime, to him, he considered it as illegitimate and illegal. And to further confirm his position, he refused going in for the legislative and municipal elections, which we all know what happened. So when you say he is not consistent, I don't know how you want him to. Okay,
you say I say.
No, I mean when people say Apostle Ambe say he is not consistent.
Yes, Apostle Ambe, he says that in my call for general mobilization and vigilance of the 1st of June 2020, I invited you to be ready as a Cameroonian people. Oh, I don't know. Who is Professor Maurice Kamto calling? to engage in this? Is it the militants of CRM or Cameroonians as a whole? Because how comfortable will a militant of, say, a party like a PCRN,
all Cameroonians?
Yes. No. Say a militant of PCRN, either the SDF, and how comfortable are they in such a call?
Well, the statement he made earlier was that irrespective of political party, your civil status, the area you come from in life, your tribal background, your cultural influence in the nation, he is making for a national call for everyone to protest against the regime in question, that elections should not be held if the Anglophone crisis has not been resolved. I think Maurice Kamto is seeking for consent from the Anglophones. Secondly, Maurice Kamto understands that there is a population in the English-speaking sector that if they line up behind him, it will give him a very strong support as far as the country is concerned. To me, this thing is completely political and is looking for attention. Why? I'm going to say this. You cannot be calling for people to defend me when you don't even believe in what I'm saying. Maurice Kamto does not believe in the Anglophone struggle. He doesn't believe in them, no one bit. We have outgrown all these schemes and whims and caprices of politicians in this country. I'm going to say it, I'm going to repeat it. Maurice Kamto has not for once sided with any of the Anglophones, whether federalist, secessionist, or what a confederationist. He has never for once. As he stands, he remains neutral as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned. If at all he had taken a calm amongst the three different parties in the Anglophone sector, either secessionist, either federalist or confederationist, we at least would have known. When they asked him in Germany that is it going to accept federation, he said if he accepts federation, all the other 8 states ask for federation also, will it refuse it from them? Which means the statement was not guaranteed. You cannot claim to be fighting for a people you are not first of all interested in their demand. That's one thing. And Maurice Kamto should know that as he's a professor, Anglophones have outgrown the manipulation of politics. We have also grown in giving analysis as far as Cameroon is concerned. He is not dealing with illiterates. As a matter of fact, the most educated Cameroonians are coming from those 2 cubes of sugar. And we have been able to understand all this manipulation. The next thing we have to understand is this. Maurice Kamto cannot call for a national protest when CPD members are members of this country, PCRN, Kawala and the rest, and they don't even buy his philosophy. Such a protest can be successful when there is a coalition, and the arrogance amongst the political party heads in this country is what is killing this country.
That was what I was going to ask as a follow-up to the question, that was it not better to gather the opposition before making this pronouncement, or you are calling Cameroonians to join in something without
that's what I'm giving as analysis. There's supposed to be a coalition right now in Cote d'Ivoire. Ouattara he just submitted his candidature yesterday. Now if you look at it, Pascal Affingesam, who is the head of Babo's party, is looking for means to side with Konan Bide for them to join to fight against Ouattara. That's what we call coalition. The arrogance of the SDF, the arrogance of the PCR, and the arrogance of the MRC is what is killing Cameroon. When a government is in place in any nation and the people are not comfortable, let there be a coalition. And this coalition must go with humility. You must not go with the mentality that you are the only person that must lead that organization. Maurice Kamto should step down from his high horse. Frundi, step down from your high horse. Kabalibi, step down from your high horse. Kawala, step down from your horse. You come together as a coalition and then to bring down the regime you so much hate. Maurice Kamto does not have that capacity to rally the number of Cameroonians that can be able to protest and go scot-free in the street. This is a risk he's taking to draw a few militants of the MRC to enter into the street and to be cracked down by this government.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Very briefly, yes. Because Padia Sanga
when he says Maurice Kamto has no concern from the Anglophones, I wonder. I quite remember the humanitarian assistance that he gave to the Aya Foundation. He partnered with the Aya Foundation to raise humanitarian assistance, which went to the Northwest and Southwest. Maybe we are not correct with that information. When you say he does not have the consent, we are all clamoring that there should be an end to the Anglophone problem. Good. Professor Maurice Kamto now comes and says, no elections without an end to this Anglophone problem. Then when you say he's not having the consent,
What concern?
But when he says that no election should hold if that the two regions, the crisis in the two regions has not been resolved, is not a concern.
Barrister, that
when he
raises
a humanitarian fund to assist Anglophone, is that not being concerned over them? Look, we have a serious problem. Today, the two regions are into a deep conflict, and we cannot decide on anything now, be it federation or whatsoever, if we don't have peace in those two regions. I think let peace return in those two regions and see if the options of maybe giving the
elections.
Yes.
How do you achieve the peace?
Okay. Padia Sanga, please. Professor Maurice Kamto says, in my call for general mobilization and vigilance on the 1st of June, I invited you to be ready so that together and peacefully we say no to the illegal and illegitimate regime of Mr. Paul Biya, if ever the process leading to the regional elections was launched without first meeting the following two conditions. Now, he says that one, resolving the Anglophone crisis by the establishment of a ceasefire and the opening of a real inclusive national political dialogue. And how do we understand? He wants the problems solved before anything, but Apostle Ambe is giving a different message out here that he does not love Anglophones. How do we reconcile this when he clearly states that he wants the problems in the northwest and southwest regions solved?
Yes, Maurice Kamto, Apostle Ambe is very, very correct. And when my brother says that, my brother Tamfu says that I don't have facts, I don't know what he's talking about, because I've met most of these people. I don't know when Mr. Tamfu joined the MRC, but I also know that when the SDF parliamentarians were demonstrating in Parliament, there was a certain Sop Lazar who belonged to the MRC, and he stood away and he stood with the regime. When they were demonstrating and all parliamentarians left, Sop Lazar did not take the sides with the SDF that was insisting that the Anglophone crisis should be resolved. He probably took instructions from somebody, I don't know if it's from Mr. Biya, from Padi Asanga, or from the SDF, not to stand with the Anglophone. So Mr. Tamfu should go back to his record and stop saying what he is saying. Okay, moving forward, how can you love Anglophones when no Anglophone voted for you? Who voted for Maurice Kamto or for Mr. Biya in the northwest and southwest region? His interest is to perpetuate the Jacobinist system of Mr. Biya, but we are saying that the time has come where an Anglophone also should be a president of that country. And if that protest is going to lead to the fact that people will come together, as the apostle said, from all walks of life and make justice, give justice to Anglophone by giving an Anglophone that power also to govern for 10, 20, 30, and 40 years, then I will believe that they love Cameroon as it is. Maurice Kamto loves Anglophone. But if he's talking about his president élu and so on and so forth, I don't know who voted Maurice Kamto in my native Abakwa. He has never been there, neither Mr. Biya was never there. We took a position and we said that for the country to remain intact, the election should be cancelled. Who diluted that rhetoric? It is the boss of my friend Barrister Tamfu, who is sitting around you. So we cannot take this super sherry anymore. He said that Maurice Kamto called for people to contribute monies to Aya Paul, to Aya Foundation. Who are those who contributed from the diaspora? They are the same people who met in Cologne to say that they wanted to buy arms to send to Field Marshal. So you want to understand why he boycotted the legislative and parliamentary elections, whereas we would have joined forces together in that parliament and block it and start singing, you must kill Itaya, we must kill Itaya. But he refused to go there, frustrated so many people who were already ready, and he knows how that Jacobinist system that he and his wife, because we have to be honest, Maurice Kamto's wife has been appointed ministre plénipotentiaire dans les relations extérieures or something like that. She is still there. They are not divorced, I think. And if she's eating sardine, I don't think that Maurice Kamto will be eating cassava. So please, we should be very, very careful when we come on platforms like this and say certain things. I've answered your question. Thank you.
Okay, Barrister Tamfu, this call is a massive one to call Cameroonians to oust the president of the republic if he were to call elections in Cameroon. Do you have the means to engage in such a venture?
When you say, do we have the means? Do Cameroonians have the means? Because people tend to perceive that the problems or the bondage in which we are is a bondage of Cameroon Renaissance Movement militants. No.
Yeah, but I'm sure that when Moses accepted that I'm taking the children of Egypt,
yes.
of Israel out of Egypt,
yes,
he knew where he was going.
Exactly.
That's
so
what I'm
I
talking
think
about.
The question should be, do we Cameroonians have the means to hit to that call? If we are able to answer yes, then it's possible. Because you agree with me that things are not moving in Cameroon. Apostle Ambe will agree with me that things are not moving in Cameroon.
Of course.
So if that is the general answer that we have, then, and we know that power rests within the people, then we can do it.
But no, you want to stop regional elections, which are an indirect elections organized with fewer persons. It's not that massive as the municipal and parliamentary elections. Why did you not stop the key election, which is the municipal and parliamentary?
You see, politics is a strategy.
Okay.
The political step or decision he took of not participating into the legislative and municipal election was a buoyant step. You understand me? He was in another strategy to prove to Cameroonians that see where the balance weigh. I will not participate. See the percentage of participation. You understand? Now that one has been acted. Now the next one that is in preparation, he thinks and believes that we should not allow this one to still pass. That will be another sham of an excess. So to me, I think the challenge should instead be on us Cameroonians. Either we are comfortable with the status quo that we have and we stop complaining, or we join the call, because it is now as if it is something of Professor Maurice Kamto. The other parties can join, or any other person can join.
Yeah, but
he has made a general call. He has made a general call. Not
he is making a general call to Cameroonians.
Yes,
Cameroonians who belong to the Social Democratic Front, Cameroonians who belong to PCRN, Cameroonians who belong to the Stand Up for Cameroon movement, and expect them to hit the call, because regional elections may be called anytime. Well. But I ask the question: why did Professor Maurice Kamto not bring these political leaders together and then now pass that message to Cameroonians?
When you listen maybe to the other political leaders, I'll take for example the SDF. All of us are in agreement that elections didn't hold in those two regions, Northwest and Southwest. That for sure we agree on that. When you look at the CPP, she's out for political transition. She has refused to participate in any of the elections organized in Cameroon because she thinks that the electoral code is frauded. That we agree on that. When you look at other serious political parties, we are all on the understanding or acceptance that there is a serious problem which has to be resolved. You can't be organizing elections when two regions are in chaos. You can't organize an election that after the elections, people start agitating that elections were rigged or being frauded. You see, so I think
the timing or the strategy to want to foil regional elections, is it feasible? Given that it is an indirect, we know how senators are elected. It is something that is going to be done by municipal councils and divisional delegates. How feasible, given that people are not going to be mobilized to take part in the elections?
The MRC called their president a strategist. Let him also know, before he became a strategist, others have been strategists earlier. I think he's taking these regional elections to play the pity party role for the Anglophones to win their interest. What Professor Maurice Kamto was supposed to have done, as they call him as a strategy, is simple. If you look in every nation, the power of the parliament is very heavy. Paul Kagame refused going in for elections. The parliament sat down, revamped the constitution, begged him to come back, and he came back. Magufuli in Tanzania, the parliament sat down, revamped constitution, asked him to go for a third term. He refused. You get down now to Catalonia in Spain. When the Catalonians wanted to secede from Spain, immediately their parliamentarians backed out of the parliament. The UN stepped in because why? They are legitimate. The reason why the Anglophone crisis has prolonged because why? They consider those guys who are fighting as hoodlums who have taken drugs and tramadol. It was Anglophone parliamentarians and senators who backed out. There would have been an intervention here immediately. Alassane Dramane Ouattara is in Cote d'Ivoire. The reason why he has grant because it is a parliament that changed the constitution. Now, if President Maurice Kamto had accepted legislative elections, if they had at least 40 seats in the parliament, if the parliamentarians of that party moved to the streets, they are carrying along their constituencies. Kamto stands on no ground. I'm talking as a political analyst and an opinion leader in this country to assemble Cameroonians. He was supposed to assemble constituencies through his parliamentarians and his mayors. That is where he failed big time. He's like somebody hanging somewhere without a building right now. So I'm begging Cameroonians to be very, very careful with this call because why? The innocent will be used as sacrificial lamb for the interest of somebody's political interest. Secondly, I spoke about a coalition. When political parties form a coalition in a country, there is a possibility. And I will also blame political parties who have not gone to election because if they have taken all their parliamentary seats and come under one umbrella, and all those parliamentarians carry their constituencies into the streets, this government cannot stand them. When we study politics in Africa, we should get around in other countries and see how things operate. Professor Maurice Kamto failed the MRC party the day he refused legislative and parliamentary elections.
I just have one question, Mr.
I'm still talking. Yeah, let me clarify you, Brother Tanfu, because sometimes people think that academics is wisdom.
One question to
academics is not wisdom. Where he stands right now, as I tell you the truth, even his own militants will not be courageous enough to go out because why? He had initially taken some to the street. When the thing boomerang, at the end of the day, it was him that came out. Some are still in jail now. Others were wounded and have not been given any royalties to that. So I think that when he says it's a strategy, he should be able to master the terrain. Some of us have not entered the political party because we cannot enter. We are still mastering this terrain. When we will step into politics, you will understand that we are game changers. I'm telling you the truth. This call for national protest is something that's supposed to be looked into critically before we take any step forward.
Yes, my lone question. What purpose does it serve? For you to, what purpose does it serve for you to participate in elections when you know that the result will be rigged?
No. Yeah. Are you saying that the PCRN did not win their seats?
All 5, 6.
We know how. We know even just to.
Okay, they were given.
Of course, we know what has. We know what has happened.
How did Sub-Lazar become MP? Did he not win? Please.
Wait.
How did Sub-Lazar become MP? Did he not win? Was it given to him?
We know how the system operates. Even just by the time the election started. Do you know that Cameroon movement compiled files? Started the compilation of files? At all the stages they were being stopped.
Are you saying that
all the difficulties were being put in place to enable them?
Are you saying that the lone MP that you guys had during the last session was just given to you because that is a strategy?
I want to believe.
Okay, it was just given.
Yeah, I want to believe.
Okay, we are going to take a contribution from Boya. Tiku Felix filed this as a contribution to the program. Let's have a listen to what he has to say with respect to this topic.
Good evening, Mr. Leo, and good evening to the entire panel. I want to say it is very obvious that we have just one party in Cameroon and a series of other people who pose themselves as party leaders or opposition leaders with some few accomplices. Mr. Leo, I want to say this game has been played for quite a long time, and we Cameroonians have come to understand that Cameroonians are not serious. CPDM may not be my party, but I want to bet you CPDM is a real player of the game, and they take advantage of the advantages that these so-called opposition leaders give them. The fact and the truth is that there is no single party in Cameroon that can stand CPDM, but CPDM alone cannot stand all the opposition parties should they be coming together as one. There is a force that when these people put together with one focus, one direction, I bet you things are not going to be the same the way the CPDM has made it to be. So if these so-called opposition leaders actually want the best for this country, they should all have a common goal. So why try to achieve this goal separately with limited power instead of coming together as one and put down this elephant called the CPDM? Mr. Leo, as for Maurice Kamto, I don't ever see him as a leader to be in this country. He's playing a major role, no doubt, but that does not mean he will become president. Or the role he's playing is not a guarantee that whosoever does such role becomes president. Nijon did in his time, played a major role. A lot of changes came, and he's gone. His time is over. Mr. Leo, real leaders let go the past and prepare for the future. Biya is president, and so long as Kamto keep addressing himself as president-elect, he speak negative of him and even his party militants. Kamto is making the CRUM look like the CPDM in the days, in the time past. What do I mean? You know, there was a time when SDF was being referred to as the Bamenda Party. Kamto is gradually turning the CRUM to what we now call the Bamileke Party. Mr. Leo, Kamto may be wise, but it is kind of late wisdom. He is playing a game using the Anglophone crisis for his campaign and to get fame. But the truth is, these Anglophones are bigger than that. The world is bigger than that. Mr. Leo, Cameroonians need a voice through which they can speak and air out their grievances. And for now, Kamto seems to be that voice. But I want to bet you and I want to tell you, Mr. Leo, Kamto being the voice for now and rallying millions of people, gathering millions of people in his rallies, doesn't mean he is the chosen leader. Mr. Leo, I want to assure you that not everybody, not the multitude you see in Kamto's rally are militants of the CRUM. These are the people who belong to the Biya Must Go group. And so anybody who is down to say Biya must go, they join him. So I want to say he's playing a very good role. He's playing a very good role. But so long as he keeps seeing himself as the president, so long as he keeps seeing himself as the president-elect, Mr. Leo, it is not good for the fight for a betterment for this country. Because no other person's idea can be welcomed by CRUM. No other person has a good motive towards driving this country for a better future other than Kamto. And this is the mentality of the CRUM militants. I say this because wherever you see CRUM militants, they refer to Kamto as the president-elect. President-elect. That has passed. Let's move on. What is the strategy? I know we have just one strategy that can work, Mr. Leo, and the earlier they see it, the better. If the opposition leaders cannot come together as one voice, let's forget it. They keep giving CPDM that advantage, and there can never be a change. You know, CPDM is a system. Another system can be formed to fight that system. Thank you so much.
Paddy Asanga, I move over to you. The Professor Maurice Kamto says he wants a consensual reform of the current electoral system, which everyone now acknowledges that it guarantees massive electoral fraud leading to the appointment of illegitimate leaders and therefore constitutes the main cause of electoral tensions and post-electoral crisis in our country. Is this news? Has this not been an age-old battle?
Mr. Leo, Cameroonians were Francophone Cameroonians were very, very observant in 2016 when the Anglophone crisis started, and they were just waiting for the spillover effect. That is how things like that happen. And this spillover effect was diluted, and was diluted by who? By the same person we are talking about today, because he came out and then he discouraged the Francophones and told them that la politique ne se faisait pas dans la rue. Not because he thought that he never saw the necessity of Cameroonians going onto the streets until when he had presidential ambition. So talking about this electoral code and so, it's an old song, but when the people are determined, as the people of the Northwest and Southwest regions were determined in 2016, clamoring for federation before some people came and hijacked it, it was a momentum that would have spilled over. Remember that what happened in Bamenda, the launching of the SDF in 1990, spilled over and created the momentum with an avalanche of so many political parties. But when you see people who work in this Jacobinist system, who want to maintain us still under France, you will know the way they act. When they are holding rallies in France and trying to make what they call clin d'oeil to French people, they put the Cameroonian flag and they put the French flag. I have not seen any other candidate who does things like that. So we already know that France still has a very strong influence, and that constitution that we have today in Cameroon was amended with the aid of 8 who were members of Mr. Biya's government in 2008. And those people cannot be the solution today. Yes, I would like to see the Jacobinist system collapse, but I also want justice to be done to Anglophone. And that is why I am saying this, and I'm not hiding it from anybody. If it is Maurice Kamto is saying that he is president élu and whatsoever, I don't believe it. Any Anglophone will be a better president than Maurice Kamto and Mr. Biya combined. Any Anglophone, because we have gone through a lot, and we appreciate the accommodation that our Francophone brothers have given us during this period of the Anglophone crisis, where people are running from the Northwest and Southwest region and getting refuge in Douala. That is the perfect union that we wanted. But we should not also neglect the fact that we have 2 political identities. One, which is Anglophone, and the second, which is Francophone. And that's why every time that I'm invited, I warn those Francophones who say that nous sommes tous les Camerounais. Yes, we are all Cameroonians, but we have 2 post-colonial political identities. So this song of an electoral code, the rapport de force is not there for us, the opposition, because people like the man we are talking about have diluted it. But if we had that rapport de force, then we could face them. And if a certain party or a group of parliamentarians of the opposition leave the parliament and walk to the street, I don't see anybody who would arrest them. And my friend and pastor, Apostle Ambe, is very, very, very correct. And I want to congratulate him for his very, very brilliant analysis. And I think that the Anglophones have risen. And just to concur with my brother who fired in from Boya, that we are united and we must do everything, stay intact, so that the Anglophone crisis should not be sold or hijacked by people who are not very concerned about us, but they want to maintain us under the French hegemony. So this talk about electoral code being modified or not being modified, you go to when there were about 89 candidates when they were filing in for the presidential elections. And they retained, I think, 9 or 10. But you know what? You cannot go to an instance that validates your candidature, and then you come out again and say, this instance that validated my candidature is not fair because it doesn't favor you. Those are double standards, and he should know that as a lawyer. What was supposed to be done at the eve of the presidential elections was that the elections were supposed to be cancelled as candidate Joshua O.C. propagated. If we went that route, it would have united all Cameroonians, saying that elections did not take place in the Northwest and Southwest region, and validating that elections would be validating the secession of Cameroon. That is what we said at the Constitutional Council. But because some people want to inherit the system that they planted, they decided to start pronouncing themselves and came out with all sorts of schemes that has led us to nowhere. And then they want to work on our corpses, saying that they are calling for people to come and manifest. If you want to call the opposition, go to those opposition leaders, you meet them and tell them that, okay, this is our plan, this is our strategy, what do you think about it? Can we work together? You don't just sit and you say people should come and join you because you are called Maurice Kamto, you were Minister of Injustice in 2008, you have been trying, Mr. Biya has been campaigning for you to go and be judge at the International Court of Justice, while your wife has a post in Mr. Biya's cabinet appointed and created, designed for her. It doesn't work that way. Thank you, Mr. Liu.
Now, some persons are concerned about this approach. Let's assume that things work out the way Professor Maurice Kamto sees that regional elections are set, and then he calls for a generalized demonstration in Cameroon. Isn't that unconstitutional? Because you say the government is not respecting the constitutions, but you are also planning to engage an unconstitutional move to get into power.
To manifest manifestations are provided by the law in Cameroon. Will the manifestation be violent or will it be non-violent?
Yeah, but the objective is to chase Biya out of power, because that is what is considered.
Is to chase Biya out of power, which to me at this point, though being unconstitutional, remains the only way, because power remains to the people. You either accede to power through elections, as he rightly said, or through maybe military juntas, or through manifestation by the population. So if we agree that the people remain sovereign, and that power rests in them, or power belongs to the people, then I don't see why we should look at it to be illegal if the people have to go to the street to chase away Mr. Biya. When I listen to some of the reactions, I really believe that Cameroonians have a very long way to go, because it's as if we are comfortable with the sufferings or the bondage in which we find ourselves, and that anybody who tries or who has the goodwill to free you out from this bondage, you do everything possible to stop it. Any right-thinking Cameroonian, forget about the political lineage you have, should reason and see sincerity in the call of Professor Maurice Kamto. He is not making that call to satisfy his personal interests. He is not making that call because he wants to maybe give out positions to his militants. He's making that call to the general people, everybody, every day. A majority of Cameroonians are complaining.
How more
now? The time is there. He's giving the lead way. Why not follow?
Now, how more sincere is Professor Maurice Kamto from what you are saying to Edith Kawala, who severally has also made the same call to somebody like Honorable Jean-Michel Nietzsche, who has also made this call severally? What is the difference?
With the CPP, they are constant.
They have been making the same call.
They have been making the same call.
Yeah, because you say
what I may share is that had it been, it was a coalition saying the same thing, it will have more momentum and more force. But now, maybe it is in preparation. I am not in their secrets.
Okay.
But if he's even standing alone, must you belong to a political party to support or to seek for change? Me, I think no. You must not necessarily be a militant of the Cameroonese movement to follow maybe the path of change. We all want that this regime, which has overdue for 38 years, and we are all accepting that it is still not able to produce any fruit. It is high time for it to go. You must not have a political lineage to join a train of change. Me, I think that if actually we accept or we agree together that as Cameroonians there is a problem, then no matter the peaceful method, because he said peaceful, no matter which peaceful strategy is put in place, whether by who or whatsoever, we should instead forge and encourage such a person.
Okay. Is it possible to engage in such a move? And because Professor Maurice Kamto says it's going to be non-violent, is it possible to engage in such a move and without witnessing activities like burnings and persons engaging in some violent activities? Is it possible to achieve that in Cameroon as we speak?
History educates us in Cameroon that when the lawyers and the teachers rose up and walked in the street, it was a non-violent. The problem is a repercussion. If you may not be violent, what do you expect? Is the government also non-violent? That's the question we must be asking. My problem is this, Mr. Leo. Some of these our educated professors they are giving us consent to think that some of these fathers like Funchas were wiser. Because these guys left the Eastern Regional Crisis, the Eastern Regional House without any bloodshed. And these guys were grade 2 teachers. And not because they had the same view. Because when they came back to Southern Cameroon, NMBLE was part of that team, he had a party. Fonta, Joa were all having their parties. Ndele had different views. But when it was time for them to get out of the Eastern Regional Crisis, they came under one umbrella. Because why? The primary objective was that they wanted to settle the Southern Cameroonians out of that particular milieu. Just like a family. A family will be united as one to fight an external force, then come back home and live in their division. That is one thing that both from the separatist background and the political parties in Cameroon will not be able to get. Every political party wants to kick away President Paul Biya. I said something to somebody. I said, Jesus said he will build his church. That is not churches, it's plural. And the gates of hell shall not prevail. Every other denomination cannot conquer the gates of hell. It is the church. So until all these denominations come under one banner, the gates of hell cannot be conquered. Let's consider the ruling government as the gate of hell in this country. A single political party cannot be able to kick down, because why? The electoral code and process is in their hand. The military is in their hand, and almost everything the finances is in their hand. Defeating them is a very difficult thing. Secondly, when President John Fundi was leading the SDF party, they were still rigging elections in Cameroon. Beginning from the 1992 elections, they were rigging elections. But Fundi had certain strongholds, both in the northwest, the south, and littoral, that there was no way that the party could penetrate. And I thought Kamto had come to that level in this country, that there were certain strongholds in the west and littoral and certain parts of Cameroon. Even if the government were to rig elections as well, they will not defeat Kamto as far as parliamentary and legislative elections were supposed to be held in those areas. A case like Jamen Yedwala, there was no way CPDM could defeat Jamen if he stood for parliamentary elections in that area. But the issue is this: the idea and the concept of someone's interest is jeopardizing the well-being of an entire. If President Maurice Kamto had gotten just 30 seats because of the legitimacy of the parliamentarians and the senators, once they stand in the street, it caused an automatic. They carry the emblem of the nation, the green, red, yellow, and they are legalized individuals. That's the reason why you see Wiba was bold enough to stand in the parliament as well, because why he had immunity. Most of the people operating under the MRC have no immunity. They can be cracked down and called terrorists and rebels and will not be defended. But if at all they had immunity as members of the parliament and came into the street to address, with such an immunity and as a legalized citizen of this country, standing on a political office that gives them the temerity and audacity to stand and address issues, the government, when raising up the gun, they will think twice. They will think twice. So I think he has to re-strategize if he has to confront this cunning and technical government. Now listen, there is a time to study a political terrain and there's a time to engage. There are a lot of people who are carrying feasibility studies as far as this political terrain in Cameroon is being placed. And when they will come up, they already have the strategies on ground to deal with it. No matter how they rig elections, there are places that you cannot defeat SDF. You cannot. You cannot defeat SDF in some particular place when it comes to parliamentary and legislative elections. Why? Those are their strongholds. And Kamto had those strongholds in this country. When at all, if he intended to go in for parliamentary and legislative, he would have gotten those strongholds. Now, when those militants were to call for a national protest, you will discover that it is work, division of labor given to many people. He will just make calls to all the parliamentarians. Tell your constituency, get buses. We're assembling in Douala. If all those constituencies can be able to gather 1 million Cameroonians, just 1 million, and they enter the state of Douala, the military will not know who to shoot. And this is a call and a clarion call to just all African militias. You should understand this in your head. You were trained and you took an oath of allegiance to defend the constitution and the state, not a government and an individual. When Donald Trump asked the Army General to go down to America and crack down the blacks who were walking in the streets, that said Black Lives Matter, the Army General turned and told Trump that we took an oath to defend the Constitution and the people. Okay. We did not take an oath to defend a man.
Okay. Let me take some messages before I move over to you. This one says, good evening, sir. How was okay? Good evening to you too. writing from Gabon. Thank you. And this one says, greetings to you, Mr. Liu, and your fellow panelists. The position in this country does not share the pain of Cameroonians, but rather their personal ego. If they can't form a coalition, then they should stay quiet and watch the CPDM. The CPDM right on. Ebuele George is writing from Kong Samba. Good evening to you, Ebuele George. This one says, good evening, Mr. Liu and the panelists. It's great pleasure following your program this evening, where Professor Maurice Kamto is today was his voice. Firstly, he declared that he won the 2018 presidential elections and not the Constitutional Council. Now he is asking for electoral code reform. My question is, which one did he use before declaring himself the winner? Zimo from the United States. Okay. This one says, from Nuyegba Simon in Douala, Cameroon. Mr. Liu, please give enough time for the barrister to make his point as you've been giving to the apostle and the SDF man. Okay, please, I'm sure you have all the time. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Special greetings to the man of God who is very truthful. To the audience, Kamto is and will not be different from the President Biya. We don't need a prophet to come and tell us that. Nas is writing from Yaoundé. Kevrelindis from Kumba says, greetings, good evening, Mr. Liu. Mr. Tiku Felix have said it all. The earlier these parties come as one for this nation, the better. Luis from Limbe says that good evening in the studio during the 2018 presidential elections campaign. Maurice Kamto said he can only decide on what to do with the Anglophone crisis when he is the president, but he made other promises. Why did he not wait to become the president before making the promise? Let him forget about the Anglophones. Okay. Luis from Limbe, good evening to you. Luis, good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Remy. If we are thinking that an Anglophone man will ever be president of this country, let's forget about that. If it will be through elections, how many Anglophones vote their presidents? Okay, greetings, folks. Speaking from empirical evidence such as protests to unseat the regime that has been in power for about 4 decades entails the following. Sign an agreement with religious leaders, form a coalition with opposition leaders and civil societies, win the hearts of the citizens. Lastly, he has done absolutely nothing to win the Southern Cameroonians. Fondong writing from the Middle East. Okay. Good evening. I have been enjoying all your debates. Good panel there. Prophet is correct. Kamto does not love Anglophones. Let him reveal details of the Green Tree Accord. Okay. Davison is writing from Muyuka. Good evening to you all in the studio. I agree with the barrister. Maurice Kamto loves the Anglophones more than some Anglophones themselves. How can you go for an election when your people are dying? Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Interesting program, Apostle Ambe. Keep up. Esther is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to you, Esther. Good evening. Oops. Good evening, Joseph Eno from Gabon. Please, I just want to let the public know that any call to the end of the senseless war in the English-speaking regions in Cameroon is highly welcome. It does not matter either the person loves Anglophones or the call is coming from the devil himself. Please, Apostle Ambe, for the sake of lives, don't criticize his move. You are one of those we listen to keenly when you speak because you speak with wisdom. Okay. Apostle has gotten you 5 on 5. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I love the program. Thank you, Apostle, for that beautiful appraisal. I think Kamto just wants to use the crisis to achieve his political aim. Okay. Elvis is writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Liu. All members of the panel, I'm following the program with keen attention. I wish to sincerely appreciate the Apostle for his elaborate analysis. It has caused many of us to know much about our country. I applaud his frankness. Digmu Timothy is writing from Mutengene. Okay, Padi Asanga, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Professor Maurice Kamto. From when we get what Barrister is saying. Barrister says it's from the reactions of many persons, it shows that Cameroonians are not yet ready to be freed, especially buying into the call made by Professor Maurice Kamto.
Mr. Leo, let me be honest to Barrister, whom I have a lot of respect for, and Apostle, you have won the day. You know, I am somebody who speaks the truth, and I like your analysis, and you are somebody who sees things the way they are. Saying that Cameroonians don't like freedom because they are not yielding to Professor Maurice Kamto's call is not true. Every Cameroonian wants to end Jacobinism. The only problem is that Maurice Kamto is part of that system because he has never been close to the people. And in 2008, you want to understand who are those who signed a motion of support of Mr. Biya. The bad laws that we have, the anti-terrorism laws that we have now, which the government is using it at its pleasure to crack down people, was as they call it, was toiletté, ça a été toiletté par le cabinet Brain Trust. So I also heard somebody say that Anglophones can never be president of Cameroon, but they claim that person contradicts himself by saying that Frundi won the elections in 1992. Yes, Frundi won the elections in 1992 because Cameroonians of all walks of life, it was not the SDF, it was the Union for Change with several political parties. That is how it works. And that's why I concur with Apostle. And what we have to do, Apostle said certain things here which are very, very interesting. And our people should learn from our own history to stop the bloodshed. We Anglophones already have a collective political conscience that permits us to sit down and forge a strategy without using guns and without killing our own or calling names, throwing tantrums left and right. If we go that route, we are going to defeat the Jacobinist system, and then we'll install the federal system with our specificity. The politics of empty chairs is what is killing us today, because if we went for the legislative elections of 1992, we would not have been where we are. Remember that what happened after the legislative elections of 1992, somebody like Dakole Daesala, who had just 6 parliamentarians, changed the whole game. And that is where we are today. Since then, Bello Buba, how do you call him, Issa Churuma Bakari, and all those other people who had seats, they went to what we call the presidential majority. So what should Anglophones do today to solve their problem and stop counting on Jacobins? Because we have to understand that the problem we have is this hyper-centralized system where people sit and give concessions in Gokutunja from Yaoundé without the consent of the people, without knowing the content of that concession. So our people need to come together to end this bloodshed. And I'm one of those people who concur with Cardinal, with Cardinal Toumi and the College of Conveners and everybody who thinks that the good thing.
Okay. Well, yes, certainly you have some clarifications.
Yes. What I think, had it been this call was made by an Anglophones, will the reasoning be different? That's what I asked myself.
Okay.
Maybe today we are talking because maybe the call is being made, but I think this is a Francophone who has taken upon himself to remove Cameroonians from the chains they have. Today, maybe you will not want to give your support to him because he's a Francophone. But to me, he has taken the courage to stand and ask your call that join me, let's push away this regime that has kept us in bondage for long. Now, the reactions you have are criticisms. I wonder if, for example, if it was an Anglophone, maybe you support. I think if we want to look at it from that angle, we are deviating. The truth is that we need change in Cameroon. Yes. No matter who is making that call, you must not necessarily belong to his political party or share his political ideologies to join the call he has made. We are all clamoring for an end in the Anglophone, in the two regions of Cameroon, Northwest and South, that the crisis has to stop. If we agree on that and then somebody takes the lead, it could still be a Francophone who is saying that, or trying to draw the government to put an end to the two regions. Why must we not support him? I think if we only want to stand and say, okay, there is no coalition formed within him, we have not even yet seen whether he is able to pull that crowd. We have not even yet seen whether the reaction from the other side will be repressive as usual. Maybe this time around is a determined call, and seeing the sufferings that we are all into, many people have sympathy to it, and it is time that if actually we want to change our things in our country, the moment has come.
The moment has come, but like many persons have written, they are concerned about the coalition, that is the strategy. Going solo may be very difficult.
Yes, going solo may be very difficult. I share that idea. That is why I say it is not a call of his militants. It's a call of all Cameroonians. So if the CPP, for example, feels that it is consent, it can join. If civil society actors feel that they are consent by this call, they can join. You understand? So it's not like they should not perceive.
Why not contact them so that the leadership gives their endorsement?
Maybe it is in preparation. This is a call he has made. Maybe the contacts are in preparations. The D-Day has not yet reached. So many things may be ongoing now. So I think, to me, if, for example, the elections were to be called maybe in the next 1 month or two, I think there is high time for these political parties or civil society actors to mobilize behind this call, or join the change that we are all agitating for.
Are you sure the Stand Up for Cameroon is going to buy into this when they themselves have been making this same call and the CRM did not hit to their call? Is that not where the bone of contention is?
No, they have said Stand Up for Cameroon, but they have not made a call maybe for people to go to the streets.
No, they have done. I'm sure I'll give you. I'm sure I'll give you most of their communiques. At least 5 of those communiques where they have made the same call. So Kawala has done that severally.
The problem we have in Cameroon is arrogance, and I will still spell it out, both within the government and the parties. The political parties, each political party leader feels he's a supreme commander that cannot succumb to another person. That is the arrogance killing all of them. But one thing is certain in leadership. One of the things I've known in leadership is that most leaders who make maximum impact are humble people. Very humble people, down to earth. That is to say, you are not into leadership based on your achievement, but your leadership is for the interest of people. Its success is defined as not acquiring things in life, but being a plus in the lives of people. If actually these political parties and their leaders are actually working for the interest of the people, then position should not matter. Position should not matter. It shouldn't bother you who is at the forefront. The most important thing is your goal being achieved by the person who is at the forefront. If all the political parties assemble tomorrow and say, Kawala, stand at the forefront, we are going to put our hands behind you. If Kawala becomes president, it's very certain that the most important thing is that the change they need in their disrespected political parties has been accomplished by them or through an individual. One of the things that sometimes surprises me is that people think that when you are the head, it means you are going ahead in life. There are many people at the head in organizations, and the organizations are not going ahead. We must acknowledge the fact that we are, how do I put it, little droplets of water that make an ocean. And you cannot be a droplet and be turned into an ocean. And equally, it still cannot make a forest. The thing is that Frundi will never see himself one day being led by Kamto. Kamto cannot see himself being led by Kawala. Kawala cannot see herself being led by Frundi. It is these differences, divide and rule, that gives the regime the power to rule them all. Funny a thing is this: the regime has never been divided. The people who have been there, they have been there, supporting it, standing with it, going through up and down. I was expecting, because of the crisis taking place now, so all the Anglophone parliamentarians and senators who are in the CPDM to have turned against the CPDM by saying that you are killing our people. But they are standing with the CPDM and instead telling their people to drop down the guns. It cannot occur like that in other political parties in this country. Why? Because the essence of leadership is what everybody wants to be. One of the things that will make you understand that these political parties, remember, they are power drunk like the ruling party, is that most of them sit as chairmen over political parties for years. If at all you are not power hungry, it is but normal that you must not be a leader to contribute to a party. I have said that we need President Pobia in this country, not as president, but as a mentor. If he can quietly step out of power and then sit behind as a coach to tell the young ones that don't put your leg here, don't put your leg here, we will need him more in that area than putting him in a position where he does not have the aptitude to run it anymore. This is what I say. If all these political parties can be humble enough to come under one banner, let them go for elections. There are strongholds that you cannot defeat CPP, you cannot defeat SDF, you cannot defeat UNDP, you cannot defeat MRC. If these political parties have even 10 seats in the parliament or 20 seats, they may have at least 80 seats. If all these 80 seats come under coalition and say we are marching the street to kick the president out of power, I can give you every confidence that it will take a very short time for transition to take place in this country. And that is where we have a very serious problem. I told you, even among the separatists, we have from doctors, master's degree holders who cannot unite. But we had grade 2 teachers in those days in the person of Foncha who united, even though they had differences. Because when they came out of the Eastern Regional House, Indeli wanted election to join Nigeria because of married to a Yoruba woman. Fonta wanted election to join French Cameroon. E.T. Egbe was the person that wanted an independent Southern Cameroons. They had conflicting views, but when it was time for them to walk out of the Eastern Regional House, I'm talking about grade 2 teachers. Today we have doctors who cannot assemble. Ayabacho is not Sako doctor. Ayabacho doctor. They cannot sit on the same table. We have professors and doctors here. Maurice Kamto who cannot sit on the same table. You are playing ping pong and you are rolling politics in Cameroon. You should better drop down the baton and wait for the next generation. That's my consent and that's my counsel.
Okay. Professor Maurice Kamto says, therefore, I'm talking to you, Paddy Asanga. Therefore, I am announcing that any convening of the electorate by the illegal and illegitimate government of Yaoundé before the taking into account an effective implementation of the requirements recalled above will automatically lead to the launch of a gigantic national campaign to call for the outright departure from power of Mr. Paul Biya without there being any need to wait for a new communication in this regard, which means that the day that elections are convened, Cameroonians should swing into action, going by this declaration.
Yes, we are living in a country where Cameroon is a place where anybody can get up and say anything without measuring his forces on the ground. And I want to believe that that communique is addressing it to the French Cameroonians, because as I said, and I keep saying it, what Maurice Kamto and Mr. Biya are doing in their various capacities doesn't concern the Anglophone Cameroonians, and we have been saying it. And when we stood up in the parliament to sing, dance, cry, call for Francophones to join us, nobody came. And what we want and what we are saying is that he knows how the system works. He's a constitutionalist. Maybe he knows what he's counting on, or maybe his supporters who met in Cologne had decided that, or have formed another a group that would confront Mr. Biya's military. But what we are decrying is the fact that our Anglophone brothers are dying in the northwest and southwest region for the past 3 years now, and he's coming today to talk about himself being the president and calling people to go on the streets, whereas if they had called people to go on the street as Ninche of the SDF did in Douala with Kawala and all the other people, the story would have been different. I'm just afraid that it is just another seeking for relevance, as he has been doing with all his communiques. Oh, Mr. Biya is dead, Mr. Biya is not dead. I will do this, I will not do this. I don't want to get into those nitty-gritties. But what we want now is the fact that that bloodshed in the northwest and southwest region should come to an end, and our people should not be used as political guinea pigs. Keep talking about the Anglophone crisis, whereas we know that even when they got that their survival whatsoever, nobody went to meet the population in the northwest and southwest region. Neither have we seen them being concerned about the internally displaced who are in Yaoundé, Douala, Bafoussam, Garoua, and so on. Individuals like us, when we set foot in Cameroon, those are the places that we go to. We go to the prisons, we go to the north, we go and visit internally displaced. When they give us stipends, we go and give it back to the people who need it the most. But we have seen people from his entourage buying new cars and doing all sorts of shady things. So to me, I am not very, very comfortable with his declaration, and I think that he's another Jacobin, and we don't want a Jacobinist system. We don't want anybody who will sit in Yaoundé or Douala and give us concession. We want the content of the special status to be defined, and if they think that the problem for them is the presidency, it is also time for us to reignite the spirit among Cameroonians, honest Cameroonians who want the one Cameroon of John Guffonchan, De Toumaza, Felix Roland Moumier, and the others, so that an Anglophone would also guide Cameroon to a certain place where we'll sit down and find out where we went wrong and where we went right. Then we can make an evaluation and then forge an identity that is typically of Cameroon without this Francophone and Anglophone connotation. And I think I would have answered your question, Mr. Leo. Thank you very much. And congratulations to Apostle and Barrister Tamfu. You see that when we are talking among ourselves Anglophone, it is very, very convivial. But when they invite me on some Francophone medias, those people, they come there to talk about things that they don't know.
Okay. Now, he is raising an issue that he would not want Cameroonians, especially Anglophones, who are already going through very difficult times, to be used as political guinea pigs. How prepared are Cameroonians for this? Because Professor Maurice Kamto states very clearly that without there being any need to wait for a new communication in this regard, which means that automatically, that is, if they call for elections, regional elections, automatically it will lead to the launch of a gigantic national campaign. How prepared are Cameroonians for that? Are we saying that by next month, if this is called, you are ready to take to that protest?
The only way to judge the preparedness of Cameroonians is to look at if actually they really want the change. Okay. Yes, because that's the only way we will judge. Because if the elections are called maybe tomorrow and you don't see Cameroonians, then it says it all. It says it all that Cameroonians are not ready for change. And in that vein, I'll join Padia Sanga, who says that Anglophones are already suffering much and should not still maybe have to suffer maybe by going through the call or heeding to the call of Professor Maurice Kamto. But what I still pray and beg on Cameroonians who actually are living the hardship in Cameroon, and that if actually they are ready for a change in Cameroon, they should heed to the call. But if we do not heed to the call, then we do not need change, and we should be contented with what we are. Because I don't see this regime in any way feasible to put an end to the two regions, to put an end to the crisis in the two regions. They have already succeeded in what they wanted, to disrupt the political force of the SDF in those two regions, and they can now reign on the blood of people. So to me, we can only judge how ready Cameroonians are if and only if they heed to the call. And I still strongly believe, with the statistics at hand, with the participation of Cameroonians in the last presidential elections, that attest to the victory of Professor Maurice Kamto, that momentum is still behind him, and that the non-participation of a majority of Cameroonians to the last legislative and municipal elections still shows proof that the balance weighs on his call. And I still believe that if actually that is still the same statistics we have on the ground, then this call that he has made, which is a determined call, should be heeded to.
Do you believe in that call? Isn't it also dangerous? now?
Well, it will not be an easy path to work on. If you want to achieve your freedom, then you should be able to face the challenges that will come with it. It's not going to be a ride, or it won't be a smooth ride. We know that the regime on the other side will obviously react. But if you read further to his communique, he's saying that the call or the fight he's engaging into is not just for his militants or for Cameroon. He even called administrative authorities, judicial authorities, and military personnel that it is a fight for all of us. We are all accepting that things are not moving. We are all accepting that no, we can't continue like that, or continue to participate in elections that after results are proclaimed we'll have to contest. I think, to me, there is time for everything, and the time, if it has come, so be it.
Okay. You say they should not go for elections, but his last communique, Professor Maurice Kamto, is calling on Cameroonians to get themselves massively registered in Elecam's registration.
Yes, registering to the electoral list
is to participate in elections.
Is to participate, but it is not participating. Is to be in conformity with the electoral system to really say you can have a voice. It's not like when you register, it automatically makes you to vote. You can register and you don't vote. It's a choice. So inviting Cameroonians to register.
This is not also playing double standard. You want people to because if you
registering does not mean that you automatically participate in the elections.
So why are you registering then?
No, you need to understand. If for example, people happen to hit to the call and Bia is chased away, elections will be organized. And
okay, he will be in a better position.
Not that he will be in a better position. At least if elections are organized, those who have registered will have the opportunity to give their opinion.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu and crew. Mr. Kamto should make references to the Anglophone crisis when he has no concern for them. He went to the diaspora and vehemently refused to meet the Anglophone activists at all. No condone with the ideas they put forward. By Ndo Nena, writing from Njinikom, that is in Boyu Division. Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Mr. Moderator and the panelists, thank you for the sensitive topics. I so much subscribe to the assertions of Apostle Ambe and Mr. Tiku Felix, and somehow with Paddy Asanga. I didn't like to answer the barrister, but for the fact that he is on air and says two wrongs can make a right. Mr. Liu, no public demonstration or revolution can be glorious. I mean without the shedding of innocent blood. Okay? Says that Kamto dashed the ambitions of so many of his collaborators when he denied them parliamentary and municipal opportunities. Was this because he failed in the October 7 elections? Mob long pass hand from Boya. Okay, what a name to you. This one says, good evening, my media prime. Outgoing messages to the world for God and keep his commandments. Okay, thank you for that word. Good evening to the house. The program is fascinating as usual. Permit me make the following remarks. If the Anglophone parliamentarians cared for the suffering Anglophone masses, they would stand up for them. However, most of them were never elected, so the careless history will judge them. Ask Mr. Paddy Asanga what the outcome of the grand national dialogue, which he so much brandished, has yielded. From PM Da in Bamenda, thanks. Okay, I'm sure Paddy Asanga is going to answer you. Greetings to you all. Apostle, your ideology to take out the old folks from power is good, but not realistic. This is because the opposition parties are affiliated to CPDM and receiving brown envelopes, which makes your ideals impossible for power to change hands. I think as an apostle we need God intervention through your prayers before that can happen. Writing from Mutengene, apostle I'm sure has been praying. Good evening, Mr. Liu. From the onset of this crisis, I have never heard any clear-cut position from Professor Maurice Kamto on the Anglophones if he becomes the president of this country one day, so he hasn't any interest on the Anglophones, okay? Gaius is writing from Abakwa, that is in Bamenda. Evening, Mr. Leo. Apostle Ambe should form a political party. I am one of his members already. Thanks. Divine intervention is solving the Anglophone crisis. God bless him. Ashu Ngwa is writing from Muya. Good evening. Solange from Limbe. Cameroon can never be led by an Anglophone person. Okay. Is that a prophecy? Good evening to you all in the studio. Apostle, you are an eye-opener to the government that does not know on how to manage the people. We love you for your truth to God chosen people. Divine is writing from Douala. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Is Dennis in Yokaduma? Want to say courage to Apostle Ambe. We really need a change in this country. This one says, please, good greetings to you all on the panel, and I am so happy for this program. Keep it up. Tony is writing from Germany. Please, Apostle, try to be optimistic at times. You always share a lot of energies that may not be good. At this juncture, the Southwest and Northwest need peace. No matter who will bring this peace, doesn't matter. We need peace at all costs. Okay, thank you, Tony. This one says, good evening to you in the studio. George from Bamenda. The prophet does not know that the CPDM decides where to win and where to lose. CRM will not have had 10 seats if it went for the parliamentary elections. Okay. Good. I love the program. Thank you for making Cameroonians proud. I'm Shay Tukov from Douala Aqua No. Good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I like your program, especially the man of God. He is hitting on the nail. I would like us to stop beating around the bush and propose a concrete solution to the days to come. Wilson is writing from Mamfe. I think the apostle should go to church, involve. Ebenezer is writing from Acha. Demande à au type qui est à tes côtés là de me donner son numéro, vu que j'ai vraiment compris ce qu'il a dit et il m'intéresse vraiment. Merci. Qui est ce type? Ils sont deux. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and all the members on the panel. I'm following the program with keen attention. I wish to sincerely appreciate the apostle for his elaborate analysis. It has caused many of us. Okay. Digmut Timothy. This one says, good evening. Kamto wants to sacrifice the lives of the common man to achieve his goals. During the protests, he should put his family members at the front line. Then we shall follow him. From Mbui Kinang is writing from Yaoundé. Greetings to you all in the studio, especially to Mr. Kum. Keep on. We really love the program. I'm Legend. Basil, writing from Germany. Stay blessed. Good evening to you too, Legend. Good evening. It's Mr. and for Edwin from Kumba. I love the program. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, the Cameroonian people no longer intend to be hostage to a man and his regime. This is Professor Maurice Kamto addressing the press yesterday in Yaoundé. He says Mr. Paul Biya sees power only as a bonanza, allowing him to take care of himself and a cohort of lawless indebted. Okay, the Cameroonian people no longer intend to be hostage to a man. Is it through a survey, or he says they no longer did they consult him? Is he positioning himself as a spokesperson for the Cameroonian people?
I don't think Professor Maurice Kamto is wrong when making that statement. The truth is that when a country is under the influence of a very bad regime, what can solve such a crisis is when the military takes their position. In the days of Robert Mugabe, as long as the military general stood with him, he stayed in power. And that's exactly what happened in Mali. When the military people realized that the president was no longer competent and he could not handle activities, they had to take things into their hands. I want to let people understand that when you hear that crackdowns are occurring in countries, most of the military men that go to the street to shoot all these tear gas and bombs and grenades, they don't earn anything. Generals are being paid and young men are being sent to the field to go and defend salary for 30,000 francs. That is a very serious problem. And I think that a time has come when they call the people of Cameroon, the military are inclusive. Because sometimes you call Cameroonian, it looks like only the civilians. I want to be sincere that most of the military people who go to the field to crack down fellow citizens and civilians, they too are passing through one difficulty or another. I have seen a military man that could not pay his rent. I have seen a military man that could not possibly sponsor the child in school. Have you always seen a military man who has been driven because of children have been driven from school? Now, if all these things are affecting you and you are taking order in the name of one authority, you have a very serious problem with your life. I still go back to make the military understand that they were being trained and oriented to defend the constitution and the state, not to defend the government. The government is a portion of the state. The state comprises of every individual. And it is the taxes of these individuals, directly or indirectly, that is being used to pay your salary as a military man. We did not pay you to come and shoot us. We didn't pay you to tear gas us. We didn't pay you to burn down our houses and kill us. Every kobo you are earning as salary, there is a sweat of a Cameroonian in it, either through buying products and paying indirect taxes or paying taxes directly. The earlier we come to understand that the military in our country, from all facets, supposed to be trained to know that when they are given the opportunity to shoot their own fellow citizens, they should deny, because the military is an external force by constitutional and internal force. The internal force of this country is a police that keeps public security. The military is to defend external forces that come to manipulate or kill its citizens, not the other way around. When there was a crisis in Malawi, when Peter Mutharika reached the elections, the people went into the streets. It was the military that was guiding them. They did not shoot, because why? When people are properly disoriented and taught on how to handle their offices, they don't mess up the office. The same thing went down to Zimbabwe. When people rose up, it was the military that kept the president under house arrest, because why? They themselves, they were tired. I'm calling on African young men who are in the military, whether gendarmes, police, warders, or whatever. Never take gun to shoot your own fellow brothers and sisters, because you are abusing the constitution. You have lost the sense of your responsibility, and practically you do not know why you swore into that office as a military person. So we are calling on Cameroonians as a whole, and this Cameroonians is a collective combination of civilians.
You are calling on Cameroonians to do what?
That's what I'm answering what you said here.
Okay.
Maurice Kamto said Cameroonians.
Yeah, but you
So
say
I'm
we are.
No,
we.
Cameroonians.
Okay.
Cameroonians. I'm talking with respect to the question you asked me.
Okay.
And Cameroonians are not just civilians.
Okay.
When we call up Cameroonians, we call upon all Cameroonians, civil servants, military, gendarmes, police, and every force to join their hands together to make sure that this clarion call, because my fear is this: if they make this call, sometimes it rings in the mind that it's meant for civilians.
Which call are you talking about?
The call Kamto is calling.
Okay, you are joining your voice to one.
I'm answering the question you asked me now. He said that he's calling Cameroonians. So
say
I'm trying
we.
to, no, I didn't say we. I'm trying to.
we
Probably it's a
are
slip of the tongue. It's a slip of the tongue. It's a slip of the tongue. Sorry. They are calling Cameroonians. They're not calling civilians. We have to be able to define this.
Okay. Because I would not want to join my media prime to that call. Okay. Let us take a listen. Yes, it's true.
I'm not calling.
My media prime
calling.
is
I'm
not
following your question.
Now, let us take a listen to the contributions from Barrister Sitwi John Kameni from Boya, with respect to what we have been discussing.
Maurice Kamto has been doing this for so long, and it absolutely displays the kind of person he is. As a minister, he said he was a technocrat and that he would never put his hands in politics. Meanwhile, he was spending all his time to look at the Supreme Seat, which of course is his legitimate and legal right. But it becomes so disturbing when it is either me or nobody. He has his militants. He went for an election, he lost. The militants were browsing for the municipal and legislative elections. He refused them to go in because, you know, when you have your militants who are somewhere and you are not there, it gives the impression that the militants have become the boss. He doesn't like that. He would never want that.
Okay, we are shortly going to be listening again to Barrister Kamini. We have some technical issues. We are coming back right back after you, Paddy Asanga. Now, Professor Maurice Kamto is calling on, is saying that our fight against the dictatorship of the regime in power is heading towards a critical phase. A critical phase means a definite phase. Do you see this as a prolongation of the electoral hold-up campaign that was engaged after the presidential elections?
Mr. Leo, when you ask me such embarrassing questions, I sometimes feel very uncomfortable asking him. In what capacity is Maurice Kamto calling people and telling them that is going on the critical phase? You heard it from Apostle. If Maurice Kamto was a leader of a political party with representative, that would have made a lot of sense. He just told you, you see, I'm not a Christian, but sometimes these apostles and pastors, they say a lot of the right things. So if he's calling people, how representative is he calling people to go on a critical stage? Something that Kawala, Jodene Yebga, Honorable Ninche, Oshi, and all the others have been doing for years with immunity, with people who have immunity. So what is he trying to do? And many people have asked that question. Who is that person who is going to yield to that call from Maurice Kamto? For a protest to be led in Cameroon and it's become successful, like what happened in Boya and Bamenda, where you saw the SDF militants and their parliamentarians, they came out with their, I don't know what you call their chapelet. They walked in Bamenda and they walked in. So if Maurice Kamto is calling on people, who is he calling? Is he calling on the military that his militants insult every day? Is he calling on the opposition that his militants insult every day? So Maurice Kamto has created a box where he locked up himself, and he's not trying to come out of it because of his ego. That's the problem where he finds himself. Whom have they not insulted? Have they contacted the religious leader? His militants have insulted the cardinal with impunity, and those are people who are against the government. They have insulted everybody apart from Maurice Kamto, who is a product of the system. So it's a very embarrassing question to me. I just think that
exactly
it is another way to stay relevant when we are politically unemployed. We come out with such declarations, and to me, it's just another empty noise. Let me put it that way. Thank you.
It's just another empty noise. Are you saying that the SDF militants are taking exception to this call?
You know, political parties don't work that way. You don't read things over the internet and you don't know the depths of it and you dive into it. I have my friends who are of the MRC. If they call me and say, okay, Paddy, this is what we apply.
Okay. Yes, lots of networking that needs to be done there.
Yeah, I think so. There is a lot of networking that needs to be done, because when you listen, like I said earlier, when you listen to the views of each and everyone, you think to believe that, or you're tempted to believe that Cameroonians still have a very long way to go. But I remain optimistic that a majority of Cameroonians are suffering.
Okay.
And if actually we accept that there is a problem, then let all of us go in for the solution. Let's forget to know who is making that call. Yes.
Okay.
That being said, I think there are still many things to be done. That was a call, a determined call, fixed. Now the groundwork have to be done. Maybe Padi Asanga will be called. Who knows? Maybe Kawala will be invited.
Surely.
Maybe Stand Up for Cameroun will be invited. So I believe that all the other actors or all the other Cameroonians who will feel themselves concerned by this call, even if they don't call you, join it to make the change happen.
Okay, join it to make the change happen. We move over to Boya to continue listening to Barrister Sitwi John Kameni before that technical hitch.
For so long, and it absolutely displays the kind of person he is. As a minister, he said he was a technocrat, that he would never put his hands in politics. Meanwhile, he was spending all his time to look at the Supreme Seat, which of course is his legitimate and legal right. But it becomes so disturbing when it is either me or nobody. He has his militants. He went for an election, he lost. The militants were browsing for the municipal and legislative elections. He refused them to go in because, you know, when you have your militants who are somewhere and you are not there, it gives the impression that the militants have become the boss. He doesn't like that. He would never want that. It is time for Cameroonians to be vigilant. The amount of lives that have been lost in the Northwest and the Southwest could not be used as a political pawn by any politician. Those of us living here, we feel the heat, and we believe that the head of state, President Paul Biya, is doing everything to assuage the situation. It is inadmissible that Mr. Kamto, who has never been around, takes upon himself to use the suffering masses of the Northwest as in the Southwest as his political pawn. We are not on any political chessboard in the Southwest and Northwest regions. We are waiting for development. We are waiting for an appeasement of the situations. We are waiting for the judiciary to come to terms with these people. Maurice Kamto, it's time for you to just shut up and let the people live. I'm shocked with some of the utterances of Professor Maurice Kamto, because you cannot at any moment claim that you are a president-elect. At times you even say President Biya is illegitimate and illegal. And at the same time, you call on him to react as the president to solve the current problems of Cameroon. It's some kind, you are appropriating and reprobating at the same time. And it makes a fool of the person you are. President Biya is the head of state of Cameroon. He won all the elections, and the people voted for him because they wanted him to carry out the developmental and democratic process which he put in place during the last elections. So to me, if it's a situation where it's either you or nobody else, then definitely such consequences must be felt. If President Biya is calling for the regional elections, it falls squarely and appropriately within the precincts of what he put forward to the electorate before the presidential elections. And any act to disrupt any elections in this country is an act to disrupt the democratic process. I think it is even shameful that Mr. Maurice Kamto or Professor Maurice Kamto went in for a presidential elections when there was the crisis in the Northwest and the Southwest. He lost woefully, and then now claims that there can be no election when these problems are not solved. Can he solve these problems? Is his party even represented in the Northwest and the Southwest? Has he ever visited any of the regions to show some sort of compassion with the suffering peoples? Let us take things easy, because this nation is bigger than an individual. And if you sit one morning to say that you will organize a mammoth revolution, it's not somebody alone who organizes a revolution. People can also organize a revolution against Maurice Kamto, because from all we see around, he is trying to engineer the polity to war. And I think that no matter how infatuated he is to be president of the republic, as a Democrat, he must respect the rules of democracy. And if the process has to go on, then let the process go on. Nobody is intimidated by any person. The elections and the results have proven beyond reasonable doubt that the most popular president or presidential candidate was President Biya, and he has been mandated by the people of Cameroon to take care of Cameroon till the next elections.
Okay, thank you very much, Barrister Sitwi John Kamini, coming in there from Boya, Southwest Regional Capital. We are very grateful for your participation in the program today. Now, Professor Maurice Kamto says patriotic duty calls. Excuse me. No one should miss this call. We must show determination, courage, just as we must show discipline, responsibility, and solidarity in this last phase of the fight for democracy, respect for human dignity, and shared progress. Now, if Professor Maurice Kamto describes this, he said it is a critical phase, and he says that it is a last fight. What will happen if elections go on smoothly? Could this also be a declaration of death for his political career? Because what happens if he fails? Because he says this is the last fight.
I don't think Professor Maurice Kamto's words are a law, or they are laws in this country.
But they could be used against him.
Yes, he's speaking
subsequently.
He's speaking out of his own point of view. That is a critical stage and the last stage for him, not for Cameroonians.
The last fight, eh?
Yes, the last fight for Maurice Kamto, not for Cameroonians. Because as far as Cameroonians are concerned, everybody has his own individual way of approaching the crisis. And as much as he said that it is critical, everybody knows it is critical. Because why? Almost every Cameroonian has come to a place that they are tired of the regime in power. And they are frustrated with their activities. Put together, there is no reasonable Cameroonian except you have become a dunce at a very higher echelon that you will not understand the country is instead retrogressing instead of progressing. And then now, with your normal senses, it is but normal that you have to be able to speak against the regime in question for a change or a transition. If he says it is the last phase, it is the last phase for the MRC party. Probably all the machineries that are put in place has not worked, and probably this may be the last phase. But I'm telling him that if this is his last phase, then he has not started fighting, because the journey to this fight has to go till the regime in place is being dislodged. So when he uses the word last, it's very critical and dangerous for the political party, because why? I don't think all his militants are looking at this particular phase as the last phase, because why? It may not solve the problem at hand. Secondly, he says it is a critical. It is critical because every Cameroonian is under some kind of pressure or another. I'm asking that people who have left the horrors of war in the northwest and the southwest, who have transferred to either Douala, Yaoundé, Kongsamba, Bafoussam, and then they are asking them to go again into the street, knowing that in September 2016, when they went into the street, it caused a lot of trauma and serious destruction till date. Do you think the memories of all the dead people and the memories of burnt down buildings, the memories of maimed people, injured people, paralyzed people, blind people, are not still fresh in the minds of these people? Who is he calling? I'm sure he's practically calling only the Francophone community to go for this protest. And in the Francophone community, how many Francophones are in support of this view? That is what the problem is, because from what I have gathered in this nation, Cameroon is one country that when people eat very well and drink, it is difficult for them to fight. Because under normal circumstances, this protest was supposed to have been since they began marginalizing, or since the Anglophone crisis started. I was expecting the 8 other regions who claim that Cameroon is one and indivisible to have stood up and said, since we still believe that the Southwest and Northwest are still our brothers, we are rising up to tell the president that you are not going to keep on killing our brothers. But they have been quiet, in other words, to tell us that the Anglophones are on their own. They are on their own, because if at all we belong to a family and my father is beating a child and I'm conscious of the fact that that child is my brother, what we'll do is that we'll first of all rise up and tell our father, don't beat that child again, before we correct the errors in the house. But since the Anglophone crisis started, the Anglophones, the Francophones, a few like Professor Esumba, who has spoken about confederation. Kamto, we don't know the kind of government or the kind of system of government or the system, this form of the state that he's addressing now. We are lost in the blues. If at all he had mentioned even federalism, confederation, or unity, or permanent secession, we would have known where he stood or he's standing. But the issue is, as he stands now, we don't even know where he belongs. So if at all he has not even taken it, because the Anglophone crisis is not just secessionists that are there. There are federalists there, there are confederationists also who are there. Now, where does Professor Maurice Kamto stand within the Cameroon? Because I have to feel your pain, bear your burden, also share your ideology to show that I'm part of you. Okay. I'm saying this, let me conclude, Mr. Liu. The person that if he calls for a national rower that the Anglophones can join is Professor Johnson, because why? He has clearly spelled out that confederation is the thing that can solve the Anglophone crisis. At least he has a form of the state that can easily give the Anglophones a certain level of autonomy.
Now, let's assume, Barrister, Paddy, I'm coming back to you very shortly. Let's assume that the government succeeds to stop the Anglophone crisis in the next month. Let's say they call for a ceasefire and then discuss, and then everything is okay. What happens with the TRM? Would they now participate in elections?
They mean that the government has answered the preoccupations that it was putting on the table.
Would the regional elections now take place?
It can take place.
But you guys are not going to participate?
Like I said, he has given 2 points. The crisis should stop. The electoral code should be consensually revised. If the Anglophone crisis is maybe stopped and the electoral code is not revised, then the elections can go without him participating. That's an option. But if both points are meted to, then the elections can go on and he participates.
Okay. Paddy Asanga, Professor Maurice Kamto talks of patriotic duty calls us. What do you understand by patriotic duty calls us? Is it to go out there and chase the President of the Republic from his seat?
Listen, Mr. Leo, patriotic duty calls us to stand against the amendment of the Constitution of 2008. It called everybody and people lost their life. And we did not see Professor Kamto stand with the patriotic duty and making him part of the problem and not the solution to the problem. So when we want to talk about patriotic duty, we should know that patriotism is not allegiance to a person or to a political party, but it's an allegiance to that geographical space that we call Cameroon. So when he's talking about his patriotic duty, I don't know. Maybe in his own political party, they have a very different definition of patriotic duty, because when people were being killed and massacred in 2008, he went to Bafoussam. I still have that newspaper with me, and he signed an motion of support in favor of Mr. Biya, that Mr. Biya should amend the constitution, maintain himself, so that they want peace, and that thing is written in French. This is what we have in our hands today. So when you say that Maurice Kamto, before we got cut off, was saying he's playing his last card. Of course, he's playing his last card, but he's playing his last cards with the wrong people, counting on Anglophones. That's where we stand today. Because what is virtually happening is that if he had gone to Parliament and then took his parliamentarians on the streets and say we are going to march because this is not right and this is not right and this is not right, then we'll understand that this man is somehow serious. Other political parties have done that. But when he's saying that he's calling people patriotic, as who? As representing who? Talking for who? And a political party without representatives is just as good as an NGO. That is it. And for you know, Cabral Libi and some other presidential candidates like Akere Muna, they never had political parties, but to run for presidential elections, they had to go and get themselves endorsed by or vetted, implanted by political parties that had elected officials. And I don't think that we are here to teach Barrister Tanfu those concepts, or we are here to teach Professor Kamto those concepts. So he is merely saying that if it doesn't work, then the fault is on the Cameroonian people. He is trying to throw the blame now because he knows that the biggest mistake he made was not to go for the presidential elections, and now he wants to look for scapegoats so that I would have said this, and then he will go him back and be doing his thing. I hear that he's still registered as a civil servant and so on and so forth. So Professor Maurice Kamto, to me, is the most inconsistent Cameroonian politician of recent times, and each time I have to talk about him, I feel so sad because I have seen them trying to use the Anglophone crisis, to use Anglophones as political guinea pigs, going to ask Ayub Tabe to give them letters through Christophe Andong, who is their Secretary General, to go and ask clemency for Mr. Bia. If you doubt me, call Paata Sang Wilfred, who is in Konengi, and you will get those information. So I'm very, very upset when my brother Tamfu come and sits here and is trying to defend what Maurice Kamto is doing or what he's saying. He's another Jacobin. They are not questioning the form of the state. They want us to have that kind of a revolution like in Burkina Faso. You remove a Jacobin and replace him with another Jacobin. That's what they call in French, le bonnet blanc, blanc bonnet. So he's playing his last card, and we are not part of that nonsense. Thank you.
Okay. There is this is a patriotic call from your national president. How do we understand this? A patriotic call to ask the president or to fix this nation? And when he talks about this last phase of the fight for democracy, respect for human dignity, and shared progress, what if it flops? We engage into another last phase.
Well, the call is clear. Mm-hmm. Yes, the call is clear, and if you find yourself a party to that call, if you see that you fit into that call, mm-hmm. if you see that you are that patriot, mm-hmm. that needs to hit to that call, then you adhere to it. But if you consider yourself not to belong to that, or maybe you have your own position of what patriotism is all about, it is all left to you. I think the history is there to judge us. At his own level, he has done or he is doing what he thinks best can solve or bring freedom to Cameroonians. Mm-hmm. Now, it is left to Cameroonians. He will not change Cameroon alone. The call he's making is not him alone who will be on the street. If we Cameroonians decide that we should not heed to his call, then let it be. If we think that we can bring change, then we should hit to the call. Okay. So we should not get confused. The ball has been set. We all agree that there is a crisis. It is there. We all agree that anytime there's an election, people still complain about electoral fraud. Now, if the sufferings are there, if we accept on that, then fine. Let's hit to the call. But if we think that no, there is no need in resolving the crisis, the electoral code is very correct, then we should not hit to it, and we accept the status quo. To me, I think he has, in his own humble capacity,
he has done what he wants, or what he thinks best
for Cameroonians. And if Cameroonians think it is the best option, they hit to it. If they think it's not the best, then they stay.
Okay, let me take a few messages and then we call it a day. The messages are just so many. Maurice Kamto is okay. Padia Sanga is very right. Maurice Kamto is inconsistent. Okay. You did not tell us who is writing and where you're writing from. Anglophones have already played their part, so let the Francophones play theirs. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Kamto will not sit in his house and send out news that people should go. It's not done that way. He should have even met other people like party leaders, and they all come to an agreement, not just taking an action alone. He should go and set. Okay. Okay. You say big thanks to Apostle. He has always been the right man since I started following him. I think if he opened a political party, I would join with my entire family. I'm Legan Bazi, writing from Germany.
After one month.
Okay. Hello, Leo, and my humble panelists. What's the barrister saying? What development is he talking about, and where in it today? Don't you see that Cameroon is drowning? I support the move for a transitional government. Thank you. Shedrack Ndi is writing from Boston. That's in the U.S. Good evening to you, Shedrack. This one says the military especially working for the president and not the Cameroonians. No elections will remove the president from power, so allow him on that seat. Ngeya Benjamin is writing from Limbe. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to my Media Prime panelists and the participants. Let me begin by saying that it is a shame for an opposition leader to issue such a declaration. If I may ask, when he participated in the 2018 presidential elections, was a crisis in the Northwest and Southwest resolved? Okay, Engineer Joe is writing from Boya. Good evening, I'm Terence, writing from Bamenda. As for the elections, the results are already programmed for a series of years. So, whether elections are conducted or not, we know the party that will win. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The earlier civilians let the military know that if they shoot at them on the street, then they will also chase them out of the quarters. Divine is writing from Mutengen. Good evening. I love the program. Thank you to Apostle for his wonderful talks. My humble opinion, there is no need for any protest again. We are tired of burying our fellow compatriots. Let Prof. Kamto go and protest. Okay. Frank Sama is writing from Bamenda. You have read my message all. I think the Apostle. Okay. Acha. Good evening, Mr. Liu and panelists. It's Maxim from Sanchu. Professor Maurice Kamto said the state of the country will be determined by Cameroonians. Let us not confuse all the different elections. We should not condemn Professor as if he is just so senseless and not focused, okay? Good evening, Mr. Liu. Joseph Eno is writing from Gabon. Please, I just want to let the public know that any call to the end of the senseless war in English-speaking regions in Cameroon is highly welcome. Okay, okay. Mr. Paddy keeps talking about an Anglophone being at the head of the nation. He should please tell us which Anglophone is ready to do that, and we will gladly follow him. Eric is writing from Bonaberry. Okay, we have to end here. Unfortunately, we don't have time. Again, thank you very much, Barrister, for coming.
The pleasure is all mine.
And to you, Apostle, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Liu. Thank you, televiewers. One word for Professor Maurice Kamto. We appreciate your idea of rallying Cameroonians, but your approach initially is poor. Go and re-strategize.
Okay. Thank you to you too, Paddy Asanga, for participating.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. Thank you, Barrister Tanfu. Thank you, Apostle. I think behind the scenes we'll continue our convivial brainstorming and give Anglophone the enabling environment to sit down and unite themselves, because Anglophone are so divided, and we should not let people use our division against us. We have suffered enough. Anglophone, they don't suffer.
Thank you very much, and to you all who have been watching the program from across the globe equally. A special thank you to the production team, Eli, Desmond, Paul, and everybody at the broadcasting, and to you, Tabby, Dambe Bryant, who is supervising our work out here. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.